Hi, good afternoon. If you haven't met me before, my name is Jerry. So today we're going to look at lesson 3, which is chapter 2 of our book, Sexual Paraphilias. So today we're going to look at what sexual paraphilias are. Obviously, this is going to be on elementary base because this is just part of our framework. But before then, last week we looked at why sin cannot be redefined. And I went on to explain that sin is spiritual as well as good is spiritual. And God is the only one that could have defined them. And He did before He created the heavens and the earth. And therefore, no man, in spite of our language or culture, could say that we or they can redefine sin. No one can redetermine what sin is. Sin has remained sin. Even if in our language today we decide to delete sin, we agree that sin will still remain sin because that's the reality. So I went on to explain that changing what sin means actually would lead us to chaos. Chaos in the society, chaos everywhere, just like we're seeing today through liberalism. However, today, our lesson, which is chapter 3, wants to talk about sexual paraphilia. So, sexual paraphilias, what do we actually mean? Obviously, if you look at dictionaries and other secular books, they would tell you what sexual paraphilias are and want to attach things such as sexual paraphilia must have compulsive elements to it and things like that. But if we go by those definitions, what would then happen is that we'll be missing the point because sexual paraphilia from secular definitions are actually determined by narcissism as well as relativism. And these things would only lead to chaos. What does it mean? It just means that if, for example, you don't like me, and actually I did explain this last week, you don't like me for whatever reason, you can go ahead to do whatever you want. You can attack me, you can discriminate against me, you can murder me. And the fact remains that there is no problem with what you've done because narcissism as well as relativism look at things from your perspective or the actor's perspective. And you can say it's an extreme type of love whereby nothing you do can be defined or be termed as wrong if you haven't thought them as wrong. And so let's take a very good example with the Bachabazi you would find in some parts of Afghanistan or Pakistani culture. The Bachabazi culture just simply means pederasty or homosexuality between an older man and a younger boy, probably 11 years of age. And in this culture, it isn't evil. It is actually a normal thing for them to be in such relationship. But you and I know that in many parts of the world, that would be termed evil. But that is exactly what we can say that relativism does when we define things from that angle. And so, if we now link it back to sexual paraphilias, the way the secular people have defined it, what they have done is that they have defined it to suit the actors. But I would tell you what sexual paraphilia actually means. And that is coming from the perspective of God or the biblical stance. And what it means is that, in my view, all sexual defiances, all sexual perversions, it doesn't matter if the actor in such acts, claim to be functioning well in the society, claim to have no shame, guilt, or anxiety in their activities. Because the way to understand this is that before all corruptions, before all abnormality in sexual behavior, God has already put in us or on the inside of us some sexual boundaries, and that is the only way we can understand what is not paraphilic. So, Where does this take us today? Well, in our society today, as you would agree with me, sexual paraphilia has been narrowed down. And actually, I have to go back a little bit. Prior to today, we have the DSM, which is normally published by the American Psychiatric Association. So, in this DSM, which is the manual for mental health disorders, they would normally list all the sexual activities which they consider abnormal and, of course, class them as mental health. And I think I did mention this last week again. However, because we are living in a progressive world today, they have been modifying the DSM and making them to suit people of various types. The current DSM is actually DSM-5, and this has now been altered in a very big way. For example, paraphilia, as it used to be known, is no more a problem because what the manual now centers on is paraphilic disorder. What this means is that if someone has interest in sexual paraphilia, it's not a crime and there's nothing wrong with it. So one example of sexual paraphilia would be something like masturbation. Obviously, back in the day, homosexuality would be part of it, but this has been removed. So today, if someone has sexual paraphilia, it isn't a crime and there's no problem with it, as long as they say that they function well in the society. But this definition, obviously, as you would find out when you begin to go through the book, is not actually accurate and not right. And I will tell you why. So, take for example, if somebody is a pedophile, for example, and we all know what that means, and they come out to say, well, my act does not affect my the way I function in the society. I go to work, I contribute taxes to the society. I probably take on what do you call them, charity works and things like that. And obviously, I have no shame, I have no guilt in me. Now, that will be classed as just a paraphilia and therefore a choice that somebody has made. And there is no problem with that. But you and I know that that is immoral and therefore should be classed as a problem. But no, it's not. So that can only be classed as paraphilic disorder if the person comes out to say, well, this is beginning to affect the way I function in the society. But come on, how many people would actually come to claim that the thing they like to do is affecting their functionality within the society? Well, I don't know. I'll leave you to be the judge. So, in this chapter, all paraphilias you have to be aware of, all paraphiliacs don't actually suffer from paraphilic disorder. So just get that clear. I have never made that claim that all paraphiliac would suffer from it. However, all paraphiliacs suffer from demonic oppression. That is something that I know it's certain. All paraphiliacs, so they do suffer from demonic oppression. So going forward then, next week we would be entering the book proper. So there we would be looking at how science or how some people, including some of our governments, have claimed that there are scientific evidence to show scientific evidences to show that paraphilias are actually inborn. No, they're not. I would also be going on, now that we're entering the book, I'll also be going on to show you how paraphilias affect people, marriages, and churches, as well as the society itself. And these things have very adverse within the. I hope then that this actually helps. I know that this is brief, but I just thought I should be keeping it brief because these days people don't really have time to wait for too long. But next week we'll be looking at um, pornography because that is where the book then starts proper. We'll look at the different aspects of pornography, what they mean. I think that topic would actually take us up to 3 weeks or so because I think pornography is probably in 3 chapters or two. I'm not very sure, but we'll see. Right. So thank you very much for your time again, and thank you for popping in. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe so that you will get notifications when I make these videos. Thank you and God bless.